goal here is just to share what we're seeing and what we've seen from the latest rain event that's impacted several communities in our area of operations here in Memphis District. And it's also to share how our federal response is coordinated with our partners to mitigate the impacts from the ongoing flooding. So over the last 3 years, and many of you are familiar with the operations here in this region, we've been dealing with record low water, historic low water. And so, recently, with this recent rain event, we transitioned to high water emergency operations. This is the first time we've done flood fighting, and the first time in over 6 years, since 2019. So it is part of our mission statement. Emergency response is something we do as part of our job. So we currently have 60 flood fighters out in the field responding to different phases of flooding that's ongoing in the different states we serve. We also have over 40 employees as responders deployed forward to address continued recovery from the Helene storms on the East Coast, and as well as continued response for the LA wildfires on the West Coast. So all that response capability is coming from here in the Memphis District. And so we're organized back in 1882 to address three elements of national security that include navigation, flood risk management, and emergency response. And so with this high water event that we have ongoing today, that's exactly what we're doing. We're addressing those elements. So specifically, the Memphis District provides flood risk management with its partners across 6 different states, which includes Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, and Kentucky. And we do that through management of a federal levee system and numerous water control structures that have been built and designed and continued to be improved over the last 100 years. And so it's arguably the best system, or it is the best flood risk management and flood control system in the world. You won't see anything like it anywhere in any other country, what we have established here on the Mississippi River. For as great as the system is, though, we have outstanding partners, the greatest in the world. So we have over 100 partners that represent levee districts and drainage districts across those 6 states. And with them, we operate the federal, state, and local systems, which include, for the federal systems, includes over 600 miles of mainline levee here along the Mississippi River, protects communities as far north as Cairo, Illinois, down through as far south as Helena, Arkansas. We have over 1,200 constructed channels to move water through the system. We also have 3 large pumping stations. We have several dozens of gated culvert structures. It really takes a collective effort to make sure that those systems are being operated the way they need to be operated, based on the information that the panel here will share, to address the uniqueness of every different rain event that we encounter. So quickly, I just want to provide an update of where we are today before I introduce the panel. So the Memphis District has responsibility for organizing flood fighting teams across 10 different zones in portions of those 6 states. And so that's why you see 60 folks out there right now, numerous equipment. We have equipment from other districts that are adjacent to the Memphis District at our disposal to help the communities at their request and to help us address any concerns with any of the federal systems. In areas that aren't protected by the federal systems, the levees, the structures I described, we're still able to provide technical assistance. So it's less direct assistance, but we can provide modeling, communication, communicate to communities what they may see, what they expect, coordinate with local emergency management efforts to share resources like sandbags, pumps, sandbag machines, poly covering, just different materials to help mitigate flooding. And so we saw a large volume of rain hit our basins and tributaries over a very short period of time, and it really stressed the system, our systems where there aren't federal structures in place, and that's why we're seeing record flooding in a lot of our tributaries on the Ovine, Fork Deer, and West Tennessee, and then in our St. Francis Basin we're seeing significant localized flooding as well. To the point where it's almost record stages in some cases, and we'll get into that here shortly. At the same time, we're seeing the water stages on the main Mississippi River rise as well. Many of you are all familiar with the Cairo gauge. We base a lot of our flood fighting off of what that KRO gauge is reading to address the concerns and risks along the main stem Mississippi River. And that's currently in flood stage. But that's more of the bread and butter of what we do for flood fighting, because that's what the federal system's designed to protect against right now, is really those large, big rivers, the concerns from the Mississippi and its main tributaries. So overall, what you'll see over the next 2 weeks, we expect to be doing flood fighting at various levels that we'll get into here shortly. But we'll continue. We activated our emergency center here last week on Wednesday prior to the rain event to prepare for this record historic event here. And then we continue to operate flood fighting operations. We think will last at least through the 20th of April, but that continues to adjust as the environment has a vote on that. And so overall, just to summarize, we're seeing less of an impact from the recent rain along our federal structures that are protected. So a lot of what I discussed and tried to paint the picture for is part of the Mississippi River and tributaries system or project. And it's something that we've been working on to develop again over the last 100 years. And so for every $1 that's been invested in that MR&T project, it's returned over $117 in benefit to the communities that it protects. It's saved lives, it protects residential and personal property, it protects businesses, it protects agricultural production. And since the Flood Control Act of 1928, collectively our estimate is it's prevented over $2 trillion in flood damages. And so that's just a quick overview, and I'd like to now introduce the panel that can expound on what I've laid the groundwork for. So we'll start with Mr. Donnie Davidson, our civilian deputy.
Good afternoon, I'm Donnie Davidson. I'm the Deputy District Engineer for the Memphis District, Senior Civilian. Thanks for being with us today.
I'm Tommy Wells. I'm the Flood Fight Area Coordinator for this event.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gardner. I'm the Water Control Section Chief.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Danny Ward. I'm the Chief of Project Management.
All right, and then online we have Miss Anna Wolverton. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm the meteorologist for the Mississippi Valley Division, which Memphis District is a part of.
All right, thank you. All right, pass it over to Ms. Gardner.
All right. Well, I'm Sarah Gardner. I'm the Water Control Section Chief. I appreciate everyone taking the time to help provide some news coverage over this historic flooding event that's taken place over really a huge area across the Mid-South and has impacted our 6-state area very heavily. Next slide. So kind of leading up to this event, the National Weather Service did an excellent job forecasting how severe and widespread this event would be. As early as 28 March, they were pushing out rain forecasts that showed a pretty significant amount of rain in the forecast and covering a wide area. Certainly everything across the lower Mississippi River Valley was impacted by that. So we were paying attention to the forecast that the Weather Service was pushing out. And you can see as each day went by, it progressively got worse. The rainfall totals got higher, and the band of impacted areas got a little bit wider each time. So what caused this and what led to the high confidence in this system coming to fruition, there was a slow-moving cold front from the central United States that basically collided with a high-pressure system coming off the southeast coast of the United States. And ultimately it created really just devastating amounts of rain that we haven't seen in a very long time over such a widespread area. But because the Weather Service did an excellent job forecasting this, it gave us the lead time that we needed internally to figure out how this would impact the 6-state area that we have a footprint within, how high the river would get based on the rainfall estimates, which areas might flood, and how this could impact the flood mitigation system that we've worked so hard to develop over what Colonel Jones mentioned over the past hundreds of years, honestly. So we were able to stay ahead of the forecast with that. We produced inundation maps that ultimately provided a footprint for the river flooding anticipated over the 6-state area. And this forecast, we had inundation maps on this public viewer available days before the event. So by the 1st, we had this inundation viewer available, and since then, every other district that was impacted by this event, they have also published their inundation maps, and this has really hopefully been a great tool for the community to understand which areas may be impacted, and to help them, their emergency managers, respond to those events in areas that don't have a comprehensive flood risk system at play. So definitely encourage everyone to still look at this inundation map viewer and use it to help and serve their communities. When we kicked off our internal and stakeholder calls last Tuesday, we shared this link out with everybody, and we'll continue updating these maps if we start to see additional rainfall on the horizon and anticipate any higher crest. Next slide. So overall, the rain totals for this 4-day event, the weather forecast was spot on. National Weather Service did an excellent job. You can see from the figure that the pink bands are 10 to 15 inches worth of rain, and the hardest hit areas were across central Arkansas into West Tennessee, and the Boot Heel of Missouri into western Kentucky, with an area between Memphis, Tennessee and Union City being some of the highest precip totals observed through this event, which was the equivalent of about a 500 to 1,000 year rain event through this area. So just looking at the Memphis district footprint, we're responsible for where we have coverage in areas across West Tennessee, so all of those drainage basins, up through the Boot Heel of Missouri, the St. Francis Basin, and the White River. These are just average rainfall totals for the basin. There was locally much higher precipitation recorded all throughout, but you can see just on average over a 4-day period, our district received between 8.5 to 12 inches of rain, just depending on where you were. And that's significant. We actually broke a record at the Memphis International Airport. Their long-standing 4-day rainfall total from 1877 was broken during this event, with a recorded amount of 13.7 inches. So how that translates to stages in the rivers. So once all that rain is on the ground, we're producing forecasts and inundation maps to understand which communities might be impacted first and or the worst. And ultimately that translated into us breaking a lot of stage records. And stage records are an indication of the level of flooding you might experience in different basins. So each of the yellow, gold dots on this map represent areas where we broke the historic flood record for the entire period of record for those areas. And the gray dots represent areas where we've had the second highest flood on record. So just to pick out a couple of those points, some of these areas have been covered in the news recently, but the Obion River near Reeves crested at a 24.9 foot stage. It's about a foot higher than the prior record, which is significant. On the other side of the Mississippi River, the Little River Diversion Channel crested at a 23.8 foot stage. That's about a foot higher than the prior record. So there's a tremendous amount of water in the system. Everything in West Tennessee has crested, but there's still a lot of water that has to drain out of the system. We have not yet seen the crest on the White River. We haven't seen the crest fully make its way through the St. Francis River yet. So these stats are going to update as those floodwaters evacuate these communities and make their way downstream. Next slide. So to switch focus a little bit to the Mississippi River, before these rain events happened, the Mississippi River was about 10 feet below its normal stage for this time of year. And we saw probably one of the fastest rises, certainly in my career, on the Mississippi River, up to the point where it's in a major flood stage now. So we were seeing 5 to 6 foot per day rises on the Mississippi River, while all of this rain was tracking its way through the system, falling directly over the river, but also draining out of the tributaries. So ultimately, we're on a major flood fight that had the quickest ramp up time on the Mississippi River also, and this is going to impact everything downstream of us as well as this crest continues to move downstream to our Vicksburg district in New Orleans. Next slide. So obviously it's not raining anymore, but this is the National Weather Service stream gauge viewer. You can see anything that's purple, red, orange, that's ongoing flooding occurring in our communities. It's occurring all across the basin. Just because it's not raining, there is still a significant flood fight ongoing all across our area of responsibility and our sister districts. And everyone has done a tremendous job trying to provide the best tools available for our emergency managers so that they can help local flood responders fight this flood. We're providing technical assistance to anybody that has questions that come up. If they have a technical question on how high something needs to go to help flood fight or protect something, we're routing those requests through the emergency management and trying to answer all of them, honestly. So we've had a really incredible group of dedicated individuals who are working really hard, trying to answer all these questions. As Colonel Jones said, this is our first real flood fight since 2019. We've had low water for so long. And to have this intense of a flood fight, it's, people are working around the clock to make sure that we're trying to help the communities and serve our communities as best we can with the tools that we have available. So I guess with that, that's all I have.
Thanks, sir. Turn over to Ms. Tanya Wells.
I'm Tanya Wells. I'm the area flood fight coordinator for this event. And I'm going to briefly cover what our flood fight activities for this event. So as Colonel Jones said, our area of responsibility is from just below Cape Girardeau all the way down to a little bit below Rena, Laura, Mississippi, on both sides of the river, the St. Francis Basin area, and the White River Basin area. Now, during the flood fight, well, in this area, we have over 1,200 miles of levees that our teams have to inspect during the flood fights, and over 250 gated structures and additional pump stations. So we have a lot of areas to cover for our teams in the field when we're on these flood fights. Now, during the flood fights, we break our area up into 10 flood fight areas, and each of those areas get activated for phase 1 and phase 2 based on river gauges within those areas. So currently, 3 of our areas, the Cairo, Missouri, and the Real Foot of Iron, are in the phase 2 flood fight stages. They've already went from phase 1 to phase 2. We have 3 areas right now, the Upper St. Francis, Lower St. Francis, and the White River, that have been in phase 1, went to phase 2, and now they're currently in phase 1 based on the river gauges currently. So I'm going to explain a little bit about phase 1. So the phase 1 event, when we go out, we have a small team that goes out to do a lot of planning. We do initial contacts with all of our stakeholders, sponsors, EMTs. We have 6 states that we have to coordinate with the EMTs and all the sponsors. So there's a lot of coordination in phase 1. We also prepare all our equipment that we have that we disperse to the communities and the levee sponsors. We have to get that prepared and inventory. And we do start the initial patrols of the levee systems, looking for areas that we may need to monitor in the future as the water levels go up. They also monitor the water levels as it approaches the levees and inform us of those stages. Once the water levels rise to a certain stage based on the river gauges, we will go into phase 2 flood fights. And there we send out a more experienced, more members of the team. They're more experienced. We've got geotechs, engineers, experienced flood fighters that go out, and they traverse or patrol the levees daily. They will do full inspections of the levees and their structures every day. They report back anything that they find. They're looking for seepage, possible scour, wave wash, erosion, levee slides. They're trained to spot those, and if as needed, they know how to mitigate those, and they will work with the sponsors in order to mitigate those as needed. Also during this phase, they do ensure that the structures are operating properly. If the sponsors have any issues with those, we have specialized teams we can send out to help them with those also. and during that time too, we also provide technical assistance to the communities that may have flooding that are outside of our levied area, which we've done quite a bit of for this flood. So we do have the expertise in the field should something come up that we need to handle very quickly. So that's our different phases of construction. And so like Colonel Jones says, we've got over 60 people in the field right now, in the field and within the office that are working this flood. And we have distributed over 203,500 sandbags, 13 crystal pulley pumps, 3 automatic sandbag machines, and as well as we offering our expertise to all the levee stakeholders and the communities in our area of responsibility. At this time, based on our field assessments and the current stage of the water, the high water, our levee systems are performing as designed, and we do not see any issues at this time with our levee systems. That's all I have.
Okay. Yeah, this time we'll open it up to any questions and answers, and look forward to answering anything that's on your mind.
There's some rain coming in the forecast on Thursday and Friday, and with the ground already being super saturated, how is that going to affect any additional flooding, or is that going to affect?
That's a good question. I'll pass it over to Sarah.
Yeah, no, we've been keeping tabs on that additional rainfall that's headed our way on Thursday. It keeps getting a little bit wider spread and a little bit more rain. Right now, we're thinking it will probably prolong the duration of major flood stages at Cairo. Not necessarily contributing to higher stages at this time, but we're definitely keeping an eye on it. I think there's potential for even more rain the following week. So we'll have to see how everything shapes up, but with the current rain over the next 7 days, we're thinking it will prolong the crest, not necessarily contribute to it more. So.
When you have conditions that are this dry, and then you get this much rain and this much water, does the presence of all this water so suddenly have an impact that maybe it wouldn't have?
I'll take that. That is a very good point. With the intensity of this rain, it's a unique flood event, generational as it's been described. That amount of velocity and rain will obviously introduce damage to the system. So part of our flood fight activities, as we have teams deployed, are to identify those locations, those structures that may have scour or other types of damages. And then immediately after the event, we'll go out and inventory all the damages in not only the main stem river levee system, but also the tributaries in other areas. And so we do that not only in Memphis, but for the entire region after one of these events. But it does introduce a lot of potential damage in the system. Then later we will seek to repair those damages.
I like to imagine as the raindrop. We have a few tools we use, but wherever a raindrop lands in our area of operations or responsibility, you got to think it's trying to make its way in these basins we were describing. It's trying to make its way to a larger body of water. So a lot of times it's moving violently or quickly through open, unprotected ground through the communities, trying to get to the control structures. So ultimately, it can end up in the Mississippi River or Big Lake or just another adjacent lake. So that's what's going on right now. Everything's just trying to find its place in the system.
Right. What can you tell us about our local tributaries here?
With the Wolf River, it's most of that flooding. I mean, there are some communities that are probably, for the most part, you look been done by Shelby County, City of Memphis. There's not a lot of people down there. I mean, obviously, the green belt along the Wolf River is inundated and things like that, but it's not impacting people. So I think a lot of the planning that has gone on from the local community has really mitigated a potential